Well, hello everyone, and welcome back from lunch. Welcome to the fourth industrial revolution. She says, confidently clicking the PowerPoint that's not working. You got to love it when technology doesn't work at a tech conference, right? I'm going to be talking in a really hard and fast 15 minutes now about artificial intelligence, the good, the bad and the ugly, and how it specifically relates to the tourism sector. Then we're going to have a fabulous panel up here that's going to dig a little bit more deeply. But before I get going, I'd love to hear from you who thinks AI will be tremendous for the tourism industry. Oh, that's nice, that's good. And who thinks that the robots are going to kill us and it will be the end of humanity? Oh, rightio. Well, it's about 70-30, that's not too bad. Every time there's been a revolution throughout history, humanity is split in a similar way. We think it's either going to be a utopia, everything will be perfect, or it's going to be a dystopia. Today, I'd like to introduce you to a new term, protopia, which I will explain at the end of this presentation. But first, I wanted to give you a definition of what artificial intelligence is as a layperson who studied it for about 8 years. To me, it's just any kind of technology that mimics the human brain. I'm sure the panel will have their own definitions later. You are surrounded by AI from the moment you get up in the morning to the time your head hits the pillow at night. Here are some examples of everyday AI in your workplace and personal lives. You can use it for administrative tasks. I'm sure many of you do as well with those online calendars. It's used in robotic surgery, smart teaching, advertising and marketing, which we'll drill down on very shortly. Candidate screening, who uses AI or an algorithm when they're hiring people? That's increasingly being used in Australia and around the world. The last one is very interesting, personalised shopping. When you do your online shopping, who ticks the box saying you want substitute items if something's out of stock? That is an AI bot that looks after that. And there was a very funny example that I write about in my book about someone who wanted to buy Tampax from Walmart, and the robot said to her, "We don't have any Tampax, but we've got whole white mushrooms instead." Now, I don't know about any of you, but I don't think that's any substitute. Absorbent? Maybe. So, here are some of the pros of artificial intelligence that I've learnt about through research and travelling around the world. This is a hotel chain in Japan, and they've just got one in Midtown New York now. It's called Henna, which means strange. And all the hotels are 100% staffed by robots. It's either human robots or, in the case of one of the hotels, velociraptors. Now, velociraptors are known as the speedy thieves of the dinosaur world because they're scavengers. I think they could have chosen a better dinosaur. But in any case, robotics are a game changer if you run accommodation or a hotel because they're quick, they're efficient, they're multilingual, they can work 24 hours a day. Here is another easy game changer for you to incorporate, image generators. Who uses Midjourney, Stable Diffusion or DALL-E? Terrific. For those of you who don't use them, these image generators scrape billions of photos and videos from around the world, and then you type in, I don't know, a couple of words, and it comes up with a unique image. It is, aside from the breach of copyright, phenomenal technology. An insurance company asked AI to design a stamp to reveal what tourists really think about a destination. And as you can see, it's absolutely beautiful. The Greek islands, Italy with the wine, China with a giant panda. It's really appropriate. Guess what image they came up with for Australia? Australia, mate. Because I love sitting by a creek with a frothy beer and a giant bloody spider. So what are the benefits of the image generators like Midjourney? And that's probably the best of all of them. You can save money on your imagery. It's easy to keep up to date and you can create content really quickly. Let's move on to chatbots. Who uses ChatGPT or Claude or Bing or one of those? I'm going to give you a beautiful case study about how successful it can be. And this is just from April this year. NT Tourism released an AI-powered chatbot. The result, A 70% increase in time spent on the website, 1.5 million social media reach, and more than 100 media placements. If you are going to use these large language models, however, I recommend Claude rather than ChatGPT. OpenAI, which runs ChatGPT, this year disbanded its department tasked with protecting humanity. It is not an incredibly ethical company, let's just say that. A lot of the staff left OpenAI and started Anthropic, which runs Claude. It's probably the most ethical of all the chatbots. It really does have robust diversity. The good thing with chatbots is increased customer engagement, personalised recommendations and a bespoke marketing approach, which everyone in this room wants. Next one, controversial facial recognition. I know there are issues with this in the States at the moment because they're using it at airports, but Disney is testing it at every single one of its resorts for these reasons: verifying guests' identities, reducing crime and improving tourist flow. You know, I've gone on a road to Damascus since researching my book. When I started looking into it, I thought, AI is terrible, we've got to get rid of it. But now I see that, like in any industrial revolution, we've got to take the good from the technology while reducing the bad. And speaking of the good, it is amazing for travellers with disabilities. I had long COVID, lived in a wheelchair for a year, wished I had more enabled devices in order to be able to get around. This is a wonderful innovation called WeWalk that uses computer vision, sensors and touchpads to make travel easier for people with vision impairment, and it integrates in real time with public transport. It really is brilliant. But this is my favourite story about an innovation for people with disabilities. In January, I went to Tokyo and spent time at the Dawn Cafe. This was created by a young man who spent many of his teenage years in bed. He couldn't leave the house. He came up with the idea of a tourist attraction that was a robot cafe that was operated by other people with disabilities in their homes so they could make an income, have social interaction without having to leave their beds. This particular day I went there, the coffee's really good too. I spoke to Izumi. Now, she doesn't speak English. I don't speak Japanese, but because of the joy of technology, we talked for a really long time about what a wonderful idea this Dawn Cafe was. All right, that is the good. Let's talk about the perils. On the left is the Terminator, on the right is the Therminator. I've got my nice little robot dog up here. Wowee is quite lovely. That robot dog shoots flames 30 to 90 metres and is powered by napalm. It is legal in the United States, and it exemplifies a lot of our fears around artificial intelligence. Here are some other ones. Back in 2016, a Nigerian tech worker tried to use an automated soap dispenser in a Marriott hotel. It did not work for his hands, but it worked for the hands of his white colleague, and it worked for a white piece of paper. Now, how does that happen? Well, we think of big tech as big, and they have profit margins larger than the GDPs of nation states. But every individual group creating the technology is small and often a homogenised group of individuals. In this case, the guys in Silicon Valley simply just tested it on themselves and their friends, and not anybody else. Now, that's annoying when it's a soap dispenser, but consider this. That same AI light sensor technology is used in self-driving cars that are coming to pedestrian crossings and not recognising people of colour. Here is one of the drawbacks of image generators. Now, this is Lana. She sent her image into Rimini and said, I'd like you to create a photo that I can use for my LinkedIn profile or job applications. Rimini sent back this. Now, I don't know about you, but there are not many jobs where that would be appropriate as your image. Inevitably, these tools sexualise women and girls. So if you're going to use these in your businesses, I want you to be aware of the embedded bias in order to be able to remove it and not face a lawsuit. Speaking of which, AI for hiring. Because data sets are historical, they're from the past, and through machine learning, they learn patterns from that, inevitably, AI, a lot of the hiring software will simply not consider applications from women, people over 50, or people with disabilities. In fact, people with disabilities have just found, even if you're someone with a disability who's won a lot of workplace awards, they will rate you lower than someone without a disability. So by all means, use hiring software, but be aware of the drawbacks. Here are some specific fails in your sector. ChatGPT routinely makes up tourist attractions or suggests visiting outside of opening hours. This second one is the image of the Spider-Man robot slamming into a building at Disneyland, which was really traumatic for the kids because during this particular performance, it was either the robot or a person in a Spider-Man suit. So the kids were screaming, thinking it's Spider-Man. And this last one tickles my fancy. Translation software from Burmese to English changed the name of China's president to Mr. Shithole, which is not necessarily great for geopolitical relations. We had our own example here in Queensland. I don't know whether you read about this, but the wonderful people at the State Library created Charlie the Virtual Veteran for Anzac Day. Now, you were supposed to be able to talk to Charlie about the Great War, and he was supposed to talk about his experiences to bring it to life. What a wonderful idea, a brilliant tourism innovation. Well, they call them jailbreakers, some jailbreakers got into it and hacked Charlie to the point where he was talking about how he was in Doctor Who and fighting the Daleks. All right, that's getting a bit heavy with the perils. It's all a bit too negative. I wanted to show you an image that was generated recently of salmon in the river. So majestic. Another AI app I like to play with when I get too negative about AI is Inspirobot, which creates inspirational quotes such as, "Before inspiration comes the slaughter. Be the first human being to lick what nobody has licked." And this last one, "Being born is 100% unnecessary." That was definitely created by a robot. So how can we take the good and get rid of the bad? Well, I've got a few suggestions. One is inclusive design and testing. Did you know that prior to the advent of Braille, a lot of sighted people tried to create something like it, but failed? It was a waste of time and money. It took someone with a sight impairment to create one of the greatest innovations in all of humanity. So if you are buying these innovations off the shelf, if you're creating them yourselves, if you're testing them and playing with them, do ask the question, particularly of your vendors, was there inclusive design involved with creating this particular app or device? Secondly, human-in-the-loop systems, which sounds really nerdy, so I love it, but it's really simple. It just means there should be human oversight every step of the way, from the design process right the way through testing. It identifies and prevents the spread of bias as it happens. The third solution I'm going to share with you is data audits and bias testing. In New York, with hiring algorithms, each company is required every year to do this testing to make sure it's not racist or sexist. Unfortunately, that hasn't extended to any of the other intersections yet, but it's a start. And there's a couple of free sites you can get onto. One of them is called Project Aquitus by the University of Chicago. That's an open source, free way of you to be able to audit whatever AI you're using for bias. So what is Protopia and how do we get there? Well, this idea was created by the co-founder of Wired magazine, Kevin Kelly, in 2008. And he posited that rather than solving its problems, which is utopia, or falling into dysfunction, dystopia, Protopia makes incremental progress over a long period of time, with technological advances enhancing this process. This is a more realistic, humane and inclusive pathway to a better future. So I stand here on stage before you inviting you to be part of the Protopian movement, where we create a better future, workplace and humanity for all of us. Thank you.